If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall McLeod. Let's go, baby. All right, welcome back, agents. Today, I am continuing the series with some top agents. Today, it's kind of interesting. We're talking about commercial real estate, another retail guy in the commercial space. He's an awesome guy. His name is Jon Corbiscello, and he is now with Ripco out of the New Jersey office. So he does commercial. We talk about his transition. His main shtick is that he's doing national representation of some well-known brands. We talk about that. So you'll hear it in the show. You'll hear him talking about that. We talk about how he transitioned from the residential real estate market into commercial and what that is like. And he gives some tips actually on anyone looking to make that transition. So definitely helpful there if you are thinking about that yourself. And then we discuss a lot of things like we talk about culture a bit, tips on networking if you're going out and networking. And at the end, it's really interesting talking to Jon because he opens up about his past and his upbringing and how that has shaped him as a man. And now how he's channeled that into, I guess he channeled his experience with his father into helping veterans. And so stick through to the end. It's a very interesting conversation. Jon's doing some great things in the space, and I know he's helping out veterans. So again, at the end, we talk about an awesome event that he's putting on that is basically sponsored or in conjunction with the Navy SEAL Foundation. And so that's at the end. You're going to want to hear about it, what they're doing, and what's happening in the New York, New Jersey area this summer. Check it out. You're going to want to go see it if you can make the trip and go up. I know I'm going to go up there. He invited me up, so I really want to go check that out. I think it's going to be an awesome event. So as always, if you're getting value from the show, please like, subscribe, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And we're looking to get in the top 1%. And with your help, we certainly can do that. So without further ado, let's go, Jon. Let's catch up. All right, Jon, it's great to have you on today. Thanks for joining me. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off and just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are in the real estate space and what you work on.
Sure. So I'm obviously a commercial guy, mostly retail and investment sales. Also do some industrial and a ton of development. Our office is in New Jersey. However, for some folks, I cover the Northeast. For others, I cover national representation. And of course, here on our home base is mostly our landlord and our seller work out of New Jersey. But again, tenants and buyers span us all across the East Coast, even out to the West Coast. I'm working with a couple of guys out in Vegas right now. We're working Delray Beach in Florida. We're working up in Boston. So depending on what the project and or who the client is, we're all over.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say development, like what type of asset class are you developing?
Multifamily, mixed use.
Yeah. So are you doing that all over the country, or are you guys focused on the development multifamily there?
So most of that stuff is, seller based, landlord based. So most of it is here in New Jersey. We do know of projects out of state, but most of that is centralized here in North Jersey.
Yeah. And are you brokering those deals, or are you actually principal on those? And it's your
for the purpose of the conversation, I'm a broker on it.
Okay, right on. I mean, we can take the conversation anywhere. Just kind of curious.
I'll put it this way: there's certainly opportunities to get involved, no doubt. One of them, and in the family, quote unquote, property. So you can look at that both ways. And my role there is a little bit more than what a normal broker would do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we do some of the same. I'm a broker, but most of all of my stuff has all been focused on investment sales and acquisition, acting as principal and that sort of thing. So,
sure.
That's why I'm kind of curious. So, on the brokerage side, I was just looking. It looked like recently you just changed, and now you're at Ripco. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for noticing. So I'm originally a Jeffrey Realty guy. I mean, my real estate days started back in 2009 in Manhattan. I was with a small boutique residential firm. I quickly got out of that and worked for a commercial firm out there, and took a little hiatus. was an underwater welder for quite some time and did some underwater construction as a diver. And all throughout, though, I remained a landlord. I stayed in the real estate business. I tore both my biceps some years ago, 5-6 years ago at this point, and I jumped back into the retail sector. So I was a Jeffrey Realty guy for 4 years. I took an opportunity at KW Commercial, which was not a fit. However, it took me a little while to make the change. I had some health issues, and when I recovered from those health issues, they pretty much didn't do anything with anything we discussed. So I said, thanks for the time. No hard feelings. It is what it is. Obviously, residential, agency, so to speak, is just never going to function like a commercial firm. There doesn't make them bad, doesn't make them good. It just makes them different. And you can't always be the lone wolf and acquire projects like I work on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm always curious about that with KW Commercial. I see some guys in that, and it's just not like on the flip side, a lot of my buddies that were doing this sort of work in San Antonio were working for, the Cushmans and the known names.
You don't look here in the Northeast. KW is a resi company. Down in Texas, they originated out of Texas, so I'm sure they have a commercial presence. The problem is, and I've been told this actually by a friend of mine, and that's one of the reasons I made a change. You got to think about when you're interviewing for a shopping center or, Cushman's pretty much all office. So an office building of some sort where you're going to make real money. There's a guy in charge of that real estate, right? Very seldomly are you dealing with the actual owner. If you are, you're probably dealing with an ownership, meaning a REIT of some sort. And even though you're dealing with the company that owns it, the guy that's in charge of the real estate is not the owner, right? So if he hires the Cushmans of the world, the JLLs of the world, the CBREs of the world, and that space doesn't get leased or that building doesn't get sold, the optics are, well, hey, we hired the Yankees and they had a bad game, or it was a bad season, or, it was COVID and there was no baseball. They hire a Keller Williams, or a Weicker Commercial. That guy gets fired all day long.
Yep.
Because the whoever his boss is going to come down and say, well, okay, Randall's great. Randall's an awesome broker. He's doing crazy numbers, but how does Randall, without a team, without proper infrastructure in a company, take care of our property and his other properties? And our property has 6 vacancies. Can't imagine how many vacancies, or he's selling our property. It's just not. They just won't do it. There's some private guys who will. They know you, but to really make big business, and I mean, look, Keller Williams. You're at a traditional commercial firm like Cushman and Ripco and JLL and CBRE. Look, you get a listing. You call the guy up. They put this on. There's so many things that are done internally. Marketing, brochures. I mean, these are the foundations of taking on a project. And I don't just mean marketing to send an email blast, but look, hey, you and I have now met. I tell you about some 50 tenant building I have. Well, you didn't want to see an offering memorandum, right? And I'm not a graphic designer. I sell the building, So
yeah.
At KW, everything is a la carte. And when things are a la carte, you become the vetting process, right? At any other firm, well, there's 50 other guys. There's 150 guys at Ripco. If the design guy wasn't good, he probably wouldn't be working there.
Yeah.
So it's just a different, and for me, honestly, and again, not to get too far down a tangent, because now we're just talking about culture, and I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but it's a culture thing. I'm 37 years old. I know who I am in this life, personality-wise by now. I'm a suit guy. Today it's hot here today, so I had a suit coat on with my shirt. But a resi firm it's generally a lot younger mentality. You'll find there's a big delta between the top producers and the quote-unquote rest of the pack. And the culture is much different. The culture is we're taking classes at 10 a.m. or 12. We're doing lunches. We're networking every day of the week. We're having drinks. Commercial's not that. It's, hey, we're in the office. We're making calls. We're setting meetings. And at 5 or 6 o'clock, you may work the rest of the evening at home, but nobody's calling you unless they know you at 8:30, about, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a more professional environment. I find it's much easier. It's definitely a lot more ruthless, a lot more cutthroat, but it's just my speed a little bit more. Hey, what's the cap rate return you're looking for? What's the ROI? What's the cash on cash? Or, hey, how many square feet are you looking for if you're a tenant, right? And once we find those, there's certainly reasons why deals fall apart down the line, but there's not too much to negotiate. Tell me you're a restaurant owner and 5,000 square foot restaurant in Bergen County, and I get you a 5,000 square foot restaurant in Bergen County. If you don't take it the first time, okay, maybe there's something about it that we couldn't see, but you're not going to show them 25 spaces and then somebody's wife come in and say, well, I don't like the color of the paint. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, so, I mean, I agree 100% with that. And with a residential background, and I was doing a lot of flips and that sort of thing. And just the level of professionalism, once I started doing developments and working with engineers and architects and actually dealing with professionals just on that side, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't flip a house again because this is.
And listen, I don't knock it. Look, I've owned a ton of multifamily in my day, and I'm even looking back into it now. So again, it's nothing to knock. It's just you're either one way, right? Like you're either a business guy or you're more into art and creative. Doesn't make anybody better or worse. It's just your personality. My personality seems to fit with the commercial. But again, on the personal side, I go back to the resi because there's a value there. It's just different when you're playing broker or you're playing owner.
So that may be a good thread we can pull on then, because a lot of guys, I would say, and guys and girls, people that I talk to, agents, they are in residential because it's the path of least resistance. And so you started there, it sounds like, and then you transitioned out. So how did you take that transition? And then what advice would you have for anyone who's looking to make that transition?
It's a great question. So how I made the transition was I had a secretary. Her name was Antoinette, and she was aggressive. And I had a residential client who was looking for a restaurant at the time. And there was a listing that I wanted to see. I told Antoinette to call the guy. Antoinette called this guy so much that he called me back and he said, hey, it's in New York City. I don't recognize your name, but I'm calling you back because your secretary has called me 80,000 times. He's like, so one of two things is going to happen. We're going to make a deal or you're going to stop calling me. I'm like, hey, fair enough. I actually wound up going on a showing with the guy. I met the guy, and within about 10 minutes, he started asking me some questions, hey, what's your percentage and what are your thoughts? And he said, hey, look, I don't think you're the right fit for residential. He was like, but I could really use a guy like you on my team. Now, that's how I made the switch, because I then wound up working for him. And by the way, I was a managing director of that residential firm. I was top. At the time, we had 3 producers, and every month I was battling out with one of them for the top seat. The advice I would have for folks, the mistake I made in that transition was, when I look back, I went to a small firm for a higher percentage of commission. If I could do it all over again, I would have went for a bigger firm, and I would have learned, I would take in a much less percentage, learn the processes, learn the people. And look, I do very well for myself now, but I can only imagine what I would have been. And I say that because New York is a place where obviously your name and your business card matters. They want to see the big company, and you get to know people through that. I went for the rogue agent kind of route, enticed with the big commissions and the low overhead, but you're only as good as your mentor at that point. And my mentor turned out to be someone who at the time had a different priority. And as a result, I left that company. I took my hiatus. And obviously I went back to what I know when that ride was over. But for anybody looking to get into it, do your research. I'm very big on culture. I'm very big on personality. There's a ton of commercial, well, it's not a ton, but there's multiple commercial companies you can work for. The question is, where do you fit in? Are you a Cushman guy? Are you a CBRE guy? You have to do your research. You have to know where you're gonna be a good fit. You don't necessarily have to like it. It's not a vacation, but it's a lot easier to like something if you fit in. You see 10 guys that look like you, well, maybe that's a fit, or maybe you don't want to be around that. You just kind of got to pick up. Some companies like CBRE are more corporate driven. So there's mandatory meetings, there's mandatory schedules. Others are a little bit more free, and they leave it up to the quote unquote team leader who you'd be under if you're starting out. So you just kind of got to get a feel for, where you're going to fit in. And of course, when you're starting out, that's very tough to do. So sometimes you just got to, jump off the diving board and get into the water and try it.
Yeah.
But
how'd you end up with Ripco then? Do you interview and just like the culture, or was it mainly that?
So it's funny. I was actually talking to JLL at the time, and I called up one of my buddies at Ripco, and we were talking about a deal we were trying to do. And I kind of gave him hey, by the way, this is what I'm looking at. And he kind of hit me back with, so why haven't you called us? And I'm like, well, I had some dealings and they had a different structure. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really sure, it's for me. And he said, well, look, I think it would be worth it. We have this guy, Mike. He was a big Millichap guy. He goes, and I think it would be worth a conversation because a lot of things that used to be have changed. And we're now also bringing over some really big names. And we have a lot more clout here. And again, Ripco always did in New York, 100% in Manhattan, absolutely. But the Jersey office, the Tampa office, the Miami office, we have guys in Connecticut, not an office, but Long Island, obviously very big there. And I listened to what they had to say, and I just felt like they were the best fit. The most support, obviously retail is their main gig. That's obviously what I do. There's some leeway if you have some experience on doing some other things. And I felt that was the best choice, while also gaining that knowledge from folks who have been doing it for a while, from folks who are closing. Steve Krause, $6 billion, 598 transactions. I mean, these are the guys that when you have a big site and you're looking for your buyer, you don't need to look. Your first call sometimes is to your colleagues at Ripco, and the intra-office collaboration. Since I've been there, I've seen some things that just absolutely blew my mind on collaboration, and it was refreshing. Even at my former traditional commercial firm, there was collaboration, but not like we have here. And I just think it's great. So the only advice I could give folks is, hey, do your homework on where you go. You're going to be there for a very long time, whether it's a long time every day and a short time overall, or just a long time overall. Super important.
Yeah. So let's go down the retail alley now. I'm kind of curious. Again, I had a guy on the other day. I don't think it's aired yet, but we're talking about retail. He's an LA guy, and so got a little bit of insight into how that market's looking, how that's performing, his retail. So what do you focus on? What's the within retail? What are you mainly working on?
So great question. So I have a couple of QSR guys. I've been representing in the Northeast, Mako and Meineke, for about 5 years now. I don't represent every franchisee. Obviously, there were folks that were already franchisees with stores before I came on. Any new one I pretty much have. We do that from basically Delaware all the way up to Maine. Mako, same gig. We're working on some stuff in Delray. So I do have a good traction with the automotive guys.
Yeah.
And QSRs. Again, we do all kinds of retail, but coffee guys, fried chicken guys, breakfast guys, that kind of thing has really been entertainment, children entertainment, which has obviously taken off tremendously in the last couple of years. I just locked up 20,000 square feet for one of my best tenants on Route 17 in Paramus, New Jersey, which is arguably the best retail strip in the country. If it's not, it's certainly top one or two. And we've kind of transitioned from, again, fast food was obviously very big as a result of COVID. We saw a lot of towns, again, New Jersey, a little bit more strict with our zoning and our guidelines out this way. And that goes for the entire tri-state. We saw a lot of towns who were not allowing drive-throughs allow drive-throughs. So this really kicked up the drive to try to accomplish that. And now
did that stick?
That it did stick. Yep.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing right now is rents are getting to a point where the pad site, unless you need it, for example, McDonald's, your Burger Kings, they're not going on an end cap drive-through anywhere. They need their own pad site, their own building. But we are starting to see some other concepts that are focusing more on the end cap drive-through rather than the pad site that they once had. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the transitions that I've certainly seen. And as landlords are developing projects, they're starting to figure that into, okay, you know what? We're going to go for the big guys on the pad, but there's still some other guys that could use drive-throughs that we can have in the center or in the project. Let's go ahead and try to plan for maybe another drive-through or two on site.
We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
Are you seeing any, because this is what we discussed, are you seeing any shift to a fully, maybe not unmanned, but no dining for like the Chipotles and that sort of thing, to where it's all drive-through? The entire thing is going to be like one of those drive-through coffee shops where you just quick grab and go.
So that's a great question. What I've seen, what I've heard and discussed with franchisees and companies is the expansion of the drive-through, meaning from one lane or now two with the Chick-fil-A's and the Sonics, even to maybe 3 or 4. I don't know if we're ever going to, rule out the interior space. And look, part of the reason for that is you pass by any Chick-fil-A, at least here in the tri-state, there's a line any time of day.
Yeah.
And that line is 15 or 20 cars deep. However, if you pull into the parking lot and you walk in, you can be served within 10 minutes. Yeah. So I think it would really be a disservice to customers and the brand itself if they just totally did away with the interior space. I think you lose out on a lot of business. Look, there's people who want to sit in their cars. There's people who, on that particular day that they went to Chick-fil-A, maybe they're not working. Maybe they got 3 kids in the car that they don't want to get them out of the seat and run around the interior of the space. Well, that's fine. And they're in the drive-thru and they'll always have that. But for a guy like you or a guy like me who's out there running around, no client, no customer, no family in the car at the time, and we got 15 minutes to eat, I'm pulling in, I'm going inside.
Yeah. Make it quick.
Yeah, and that works for me. And your situation being, having a couple kids in a car or maybe being on a conference call, that works for you in that moment. So I don't think there's a necessity to do away with it. Now, I have seen many of the QSRs reducing their footprint. Now we're talking 1,700 square feet as opposed to 4,000, 3,000. Some we're talking 1,200 in a little bit of a limited selection kind of thing. So there's definitely changes to be made, but I don't foresee it being the norm that it's just only drive-throughs. I think it would be a traffic nightmare and disaster, and I think people would give up on some brands.
Yeah, that makes sense. It may have been more like hey, we're not going to have a playground at McDonald's. We're not going to have I think that may have been where the conversation was going.
Yeah, but I think those days are over. But yeah. I have seen some come alive with those playgrounds. But yeah, I think that's kind of changing. That's a changing of the times, if you will.
Yeah. Do you guys have? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you guys have like indoor parks up there. We have a place called Airtopia down here, and it's awesome for kids. You take them there. It's an indoor trampoline park, and those things have blown up all over the place in San Antonio.
So great point. That was the recent deal I did over there in Paramus, indoor park for kids. We have a ton of other stuff here. We have American Dream Mall, which has a ski slope in it. It's got rock climbing. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. We do have those indoor amusement parks. We have indoor water parks here in New Jersey and also Pennsylvania as well. So there's a ton of stuff like that to do.
Yeah. How much space does a indoor ski place take up? Do you have any idea? Seems like you have to have quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but it's certainly tens of thousands.
Yeah. I see the view back here. Where are we looking? What am I looking at?
You are looking at Midtown Manhattan on the east. You're looking at the west of Manhattan. You are facing east, looking at the west side of Manhattan, and you're looking at Midtown right there. We have the Freedom Tower off to my left, your right.
That's what I thought.
It's a nice view here.
That's an awesome view. Is this your place?
This is.
Yeah, it's a great view. My sister-in-law still lives up there. She just moved out of the city and she's in West Orange. I think that's relatively close to you.
Yeah. I'm doing a project down there right now, actually.
Yeah. She loves it. Commutes in, still works in town, but yeah, she's out there. So we're gonna come up soon. Have to hit you up, catch up.
We'll grab a drink anytime.
For sure. So, all right. Again, a lot of the purpose of the show, I'm trying to figure out, not just for myself, selfishly, I want to, learn more about retail, learn more about all kinds of different asset classes. I had a crypto guy on the other day. We're talking about crypto funds and all. Yeah. So it's the premise is getting agents and getting real estate professionals to start investing in real estate in general, different asset classes, putting their money to work so that they can actually get some return. So on deals that you're working on, like retail space, the reason I was asking you is, again, if you were principal in those deals and how you're structuring those, is because I'm curious about offerings as they come out for these types of things. Like what are typical returns on a retail deal if I'm an LP coming into a deal like that a syndicator's putting together? Are you seeing that side of it, or are you
look, there's really two different types of syndication, right? There's small syndication, which is generally between, I would say maybe 1 to 4 guys. And then you go SEC syndication, which is your larger funds that are, inviting people in, maybe 200 people in, maybe 50 people. That's a separate entity because they'll usually kind of make a minimum, maybe a maximum. And you're kind of, again, it's regulated by the SEC. So it's probably not something someone's going to do out of the gate. As far as the not necessarily a smaller project, but the other version of that syndication, which is, you and I, are the general partners and we put it out to, 10, 15 people or whatever to come in as limited partners and then get a bump and a rate of return. There's really no standard offering. It's definitely very site specific. What is the reason for the acquisition? Is it a value add play? There's a lot of that here. My old company, those guys made their careers off of buying shopping centers, value add. There's, obviously your traditional cap rate deal, which is a little bit more straightforward. A lot of guys will offer a percentage, a 6%, maybe before payback, and then, a 2 or 3% bump. But again, it's dependent on how much they're looking for. And I also think it really depends on how they'll go somewhere with something, but it depends on how many people they're looking to bring on and what that looks like for them. So again, super site specific or not site specific, but scenario specific for who that GP is and what he actually wants in return and how much he's putting into the deal, right? If it's something that's super management intensive, you got 25 tenants. Well, we know there's going to be a management team there. But that's a little bit different if they're the one, liaisoning and speaking to them. If it's a 2-tenant building, or if it's a McDonald's or I shouldn't say McDonald's, bad example. If it's a fast food place that closed down, and somebody's got a line on maybe a medical use like an urgent care, that similar setup, they're going to go ahead and take it. The return may not be, obviously there's a return for the value add. So that will increase, obviously, the value of the building or the site rather. But the GP may say, look, man, I already lined up the tenant. So I'm just looking for cash.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to raise capital here, right?
Yeah.
So
in that scenario,
it depends.
Sure. But in that scenario, like what is typical? What do you see? Again, you can take it either way. Assume it's
right.
a larger syndication. It's a $20 million deal. You got to raise some capital for it, and you're bringing in 50 people or something, and it's a 506B, whatever it is. Like, as an LP, if I gave you $100,000, like, are my returns going to be a 5?
It's just a tough question to answer because
that's fair.
At the end of the day, if we're raising that 20 million, how much of that 20 million are you? Is the GP going out to say, look, I want 5 guys to put in $4 million? Am I allowed to invest if I only have 500,000? Right? And here's another one. Am I capped at a certain? So, for example, a lot of times real estate companies will send out an email, and look, we're going to buy this building. We'd like to know who's involved. To be fair to everyone, there's going to be a minimum, and there may be a maximum as well. And that maximum may be to allow other people to get involved. It's not fair that Randall has $2 million to invest and everybody else only has 40 grand. So, hey, okay. And if the investment is, $1 million, well, obviously Randall he's got 2 million. So he's going to put in that 1 million. He's going to be good. That's not really how a lot of people structure it. They want to give an opportunity. But again, if you're a private, it's a couple of guys getting together, I think that number decreases, a whole lot. And oftentimes you may even have a side agreement going with somebody with another limited partner. Hey, I can only put up this much, but out of the proceeds, you have 2 limited partners. One guy's paying back another limited partner to invest for him. So there's all kinds of, things to consider. Most deals are going to require a proportionate share of cash calls, right? Hey, we bought the building. Now we got to fix the building up. Well, you're in theory a 2% owner. You got to give me 2% of the cost of the repair. I've seen deals where that's not the case, but then again, the rate of return is much different.
Yeah.
Hey, GP says, look, I'll take on the cash calls, but I'm not paying you 6% and then a bump to 8 or something like that. I'm giving you, 5 day long.
Yeah.
Because it's my cash.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I'm always curious just how it compares to a lot of the multifamily deals that I'm looking at, because there's kind of like a boilerplate template on the multifamily side. It's pretty, you can mess with it a bit, an 80-20 split, no pref, that sort of thing. 7 pref, 70-30 split, whatever it is. They kind of all work out the same. It just depends on the investor base that you're going after. So I just didn't know if there was something comparable to that on the retail side where you're like, all right, guys, this is what I see a lot of on offerings.
No, it's, because a lot of the times, oftentimes what you have happen is the broker's also the one finding the deal.
Yeah.
So the broker oftentimes is doing it in reverse.
Yeah.
Hey, I found you the building. I think I can get a line on it, but I'm the limited partner.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you how much I want to invest, or hey, us 3 are going to do that. So again, it's, I understand what you're saying, but for the retail stuff, especially value add, I haven't seen something that always comes up that I could say, okay, this is a streamlined, whatever. Multifamily cap rate deal, probably a little bit more organized. I can see where you're coming from and see that be the case.
So when you, again, I guess get back to like high dollar productive activities, just because it sounds like you get shit done. So I'm kind of curious how you went from the single family into the multifamily, and how did you build these relationships with potential tenants coming in? Because you've got some names there that you're dealing with and working with. Like, how do those come about? And then how did you really start just building your business? What are some strategies that you use that maybe someone else could pick up?
I call it ground and pound, man. It's getting on the phones. No one likes to do it. I did it today. I do it every day for different things. You got to show up, right? Like you'll might make 500 calls in 3 days. Might not get anybody to pick up or anybody to listen to you. Next call you make, you got a relationship. Biggest thing I can tell people is, or share, is you have to go in with your eyes open. Oftentimes the biggest issues with people are they have such tunnel vision, or they're so laser focused on accomplishing a step or a task in the goal or to the mission or an evolution of the mission, that they lose sight of the what the mission actually is. And the mission is more business, right? The task is hopping on the phones or knocking on doors, or whatever you're networking. Some guys are better going out in the evening times. They like to do their networking in places or country club or wherever it is. But it's important to realize that when you get that no or that it's not going to work out here, that you have the ability to transition to something else. Randall, what's going on? I got this building for sale. It's in whatever. It's in Midtown Manhattan. I looked your name up. You got some property. Or how about this, a much easier one? Hey, man, I got this building for sale. I see her in Midtown Manhattan. Jeez, I'm screwing myself up. Let's say I'm calling you, and I'm calling to see if you want to sell. Guy says, no, I don't want to sell. Okay, great. Hey, let me ask you something. I'm working my call list here, and I'm calling like 200 owners. Somebody's going to sell. Somebody's going to say yes. Are you a buyer?
Yeah.
If you own a building on 8th Avenue, and I call a guy on 7th Avenue, and we're both on 40th Street, would you buy that building? Guy might say, yeah, all day, man, I'd buy that building. Okay, great. So it's like, hey, I didn't get what I wanted or what I thought I was going to get out of the call, but I still got a client, and you can run that one as far down the rabbit hole as you want. Well, what do you buy? Where do you buy? Do you have any properties? And here's another follow-up. Oh, man, you don't want to sell that building on 8th Avenue? Hey, Randall, I got a question, man. I'm actually out here in New Jersey. You guys own a lot of buildings? Do you own anything in Jersey? Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, we own something in South Jersey. Hey, gee, you know what? We actually might want to sell that building in 6 months. Oh, wow. Okay, great. So again, it's being able to adapt to the phone call and have your eyes a little bit more conversational, rather than what I've learned in my years is there's a time to sell. In commercial, many people never make it to that level to even try to sell. Commercial's a lot about knowledge and information. I'm going to give you the information as to why this site works or some things you don't know. So then you say, well, when is actually the time to sell? I'm talking about when you got 3 guys and you're going in front of an institution, or you're pitching a development. You can add some sizzle on those pitches. You can talk about not only the building, but maybe the culture and the environment and the vibe that it's going to bring to the community, and how the people of the community are going to love this. And we're going to build a new walkway by the river, and we're going to have tennis courts, and we'll have tournament. There's some sizzle and some flair there. But for the most part, for the day to day, it's about asking the right questions and being as informative as you can on the topic.
Yeah, I think the transition or the statement, have your eyes open, is key. That's how. Yeah, I know. There's a book I read. I think it's Jeb Blount wrote it, and it's about always be prospecting, something along those lines. And it's like just always transition, always have something you're talking about, and just listen to the person, because that's more of a conversation. You're not doing like a sales pitch. You're not just calling to pitch somebody. It's like, well, let me build my buyers list at the same time, and let's see if I can be of value to you at some point in the future.
I mean, look, I remember being a new guy going to networking events, trying so hard just to try to find something to connect with somebody about. I remember thinking it's all about business, but the reality is, again, I had my tunnel vision on, right? I put in my schedule that from 6 to 7, I'm networking. And in order to have a successful network, I got to leave here with 10 names,
Yeah.
You spend some time in the business and then you realize you're going to these networking events and you're going to take a break, right? You're going to grab a drink. You're going to socialize. You're going to see some people that you know in the business. So my advice to those who maybe are not at that level of comfort yet is go and have a conversation with someone about something, because you might make a friend or you might find a common interest. And look, relationships take a long time. I have some folks in this business. I still dive recreationally. We dive. We've gone on dives together. I've been to my landlord's homes in other states, not because I was the greatest broker in town, but because we had some type of, common thread. And yeah, those guys reach out to me when they got something in my area. It's not all the time. It's not every year, and I also call them and they call me for the holidays. So it's about business as a whole, but it's not always about having the most advanced intellectual conversation about the real estate market every time you're talking to somebody or at a networking event. You kind of realize, look, within the first 5 minutes of an individual, you take anything you know well, whether that's real estate, whether that's boxing, ice hockey, whatever. And I put you in a room with people and I say, look, talk to 5 people. You only have 2 minutes. And at the end of 2 minutes, I want you to tell me who's the professional, who's the first day, who's kind of middle of the road, you'll know, because it's not always about what you're saying. It's about what you're not saying, right? If I'm talking to you about a massive multifamily, and I tell you I do massive multifamily deals, and I'm not using the right lingo, right? Well, okay. So, and look, you may leave that conversation, and here's what people don't realize. You may leave that conversation and say, wow, that guy John sounds like a really great broker. But he's a great broker at level B or level D, and I'm at level F. And I know that because even though he had a sharp suit on, I could tell he wasn't drunk. So, there's no excuse there. And he just wasn't talking the language that I speak every day. So you can grasp how much experience or how good someone is, within a very short time frame of talking to him. So again, you're not fooling anyone, and it's just better to, be yourself and get that relationship going.
100%. I agree with that. And on that point, I think it's a good transition because I wanted to ask you a couple things that I saw on your personal. You got this Navy SEAL Foundation swim event going on, and that looked really interesting to me. You're a diver and an underwater welder. So I'm putting some pieces together here. Do you have military background, sir?
Great question. So no, I was not in the military. I am an active member of the Civil Air Patrol.
What is that? I saw that as well, and I wanted to ask you about that.
The Civil Air Patrol it could be enacted as in the Air Force in the time of war. I don't think that would ever happen. And if they did, it would not be in a combat applied position. Civil Air Patrol is a volunteer organization of civilians and also obviously retired, active duty. It's everybody. And it's really catered to the kids, but there are adult roles. Similar, disaster relief. If there's a hurricane, those guys will go all over the country. Again, good for the kids to become cadets and kind of, work up to military school and things like that. But it's a volunteer organization through and through and at the heart of it. Yeah. You'll see them at baseball games. You'll see them at hot air balloon fairs and things like that. But you'll see them assisting. For example, during the time of COVID, I was sent down, or I volunteered rather, to go. I was at a COVID testing center ran by one of the county police departments, and we were there. We had a functioning role there, but again, it's a volunteer role. It's not, you're not walking around with your plate carrier on that they gave you and playing Rambo for the day. You're helping, but in a support role. No military background. I did work for an arms company for a little while. I still do a little bit with them. They're government contractors, ITAR and certified, Newcomer Arms. That's a smaller company. We've had some dealings in different countries. I was down in Brazil not too long ago trying to sell armored vehicles. We wound up not getting the contract, but it was a great trip nonetheless. And the Navy SEAL swim, that was the other thing you asked about. So Bill Brown, veteran, Navy SEAL. He's a very close friend of mine. I can tell you a very funny story about meeting Bill Brown and how we became good friends and us almost beating each other up in the ring and that stuff. But that is a wonderful event. We are on our 5th year now. We do swim across the Hudson. It used to be with another organization, the GI Go Fund, but we've now signed on this year for the Navy SEAL Foundation. Bill Brown asked me one day, leaving the boxing gym at 5:30 in the morning in Paterson, New Jersey. He says, "Hey, man, you want to swim across the Hudson with me and David Goggins?" I was like, now? It was February,
Yeah.
And he was like, no, man. He was like, in the summertime. I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, sign me up. Let's do it. And it started off as what was going to be like 3 or 4 guys just swimming. And at the time that these organizations picked up on it, Fox News picked up on it. And the purpose, and it's very important that I mention this, because a lot of the times we forget what it's for in the hype and the coolness of it all. It's a super cool event. We're capped at 350 this year. We have now opened it up to the public with some tryout swims. You have to prove yourself. The first year was SEALs only. And the function of the event at its origination was to help homeless veterans in the tri-state area. Now, my father was a homeless veteran, and he was a homeless Vietnam veteran. However, he was homeless in the 2000s. It's a very, very important point to make. And the reason I'm making it is my role in that first year was to give a speech. I didn't swim that year. My first time swimming was this past year, because the year prior I was in the hospital with COVID. But I like to speak to those veterans and tell them, the ones that have families, right? To me, there's a difference between being homeless, genuinely, truly homeless. And I feel for those people that are. And living on the streets. Living on the streets is a choice. And oftentimes what you have is these veterans who did their time, no matter what branch. I know it's a SEAL swim, but it doesn't matter. Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever, Marines. And they had a role, oftentimes at a very young age. Oftentimes they were leaders of folks even older than them. And in a combat application, when you come out, the transition can be difficult. And the smallest thing, so let's take a guy, many people think, oh, veterans have it so easy in the workplace. No, they don't. The same thing that a veteran uses to get that job is the same thing that he's trying to not be when he gets the job, right? There's a lot of stereotypes about veterans that aren't positive. So, hey, when they get that job, now they're doing everything they can to not be, well, that's our veteran we got working for us. The hair grows long. They're not showing the tats. They're dressing proper. They're trying not to be what everyone thinks it is. And it's not easy because and again, sometimes it's like, hey, like my buddy Ryan, oh, that's Ryan. He's the Marine. It's like, no, that's Ryan. I won't say the company he works for, but finance. That's Ryan, our senior vice president. He is a veteran and he did serve, but he's our senior vice president. He has the tools and the capabilities to have this position current day. And that makes things difficult. And look, I had someone I know and several people I know lose a job. And the job was good pay job, good earnings job, and almost take their own life. One person on the George Washington Bridge got into a fight with a passerby. Guy pulled him off the bridge. He was going to jump. Police show up. And this is a friend of a friend. So let's be clear, my personal friend. gets into a fight with the passerby. Cops show up. Passerby says, look, I don't want to press charges. I just want you to get this guy some help. He says to the guy, why did you try to do this? He said, I lost my job. He said, okay. He goes, I'm ashamed to go home with my family. And oftentimes I think veterans feel that their families will be ashamed. But I'm there to say, because I was the son of someone who felt ashamed after they lost their job. So a little projecting there, but he was ashamed to come home and be a father. And even though he was my mother's ex-husband at the time, he was ashamed to provide. He was ashamed to say he didn't have a job. Now, I grew up without a father. I had a stepfather. And if you ask me back then, or you ask me today what I would have been back then, I just wanted my dad around. I wanted my dad to take me to the baseball game. I wanted my dad to be at the football game. I wanted my dad to teach me what he knew about camping and doing all these other things. Whatever money my dad made was irrelevant. And to my mother and my stepfather's a tremendous man. Definitely developed a lot of respect for him over the later years of my life. They also didn't care. They were happy for his role to be my father. And if he couldn't provide a financial benefit, they were okay with that. And look what happened. My father chose to live on the streets. They found him in a parked car, homeless, half his teeth missing. And although not everyone gets to that level, my message is to say, look, your family loves you. They care about you. Go home, especially guys with daughters. If you have boys, life's a little bit different, right? But, we want those guys to come in and get the help that they need and get a job and get cleaned up. And that's the purpose of the event. So we raised quite a bit of money, several hundred thousands of dollars. Again, the Navy SEAL Foundation has taken over this year, so a little bit of the changing the guard, but it's going to be massive this year. We're capped at 350 swimmers. So if anybody out there is listening to this and you want to try out, we have tryouts in June. We have tryouts in July. Please get in touch with Randall or get in touch with me, whatever contact information comes up. We'd love to give you an opportunity to join us. And if you can't swim or you're not a good swimmer, please come out and support. Fox 5's News covers it. We have a ton of great events leading up to the big show. We get a ton of assistance from the NYPD, New Jersey State Police, and it's a really cool experience.
How long does it take to get across? Like a good swimmer compared to
So we stop. So we start in a park in Jersey City, and we run down to our launch point. It's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. Then we'll jump in the water. We swim to the Statue of Liberty. We jump on a barge. We do 22 pull-ups to honor veteran suicides and 100 push-ups. And then we'll swim over to Ellis Island, and we'll do the same. And obviously, Statue of Liberty is symbolic. It's the liberties and the freedoms that we're given here in this country. Ellis Island, very symbolic to most all of us who at some point or another, our family members and ancestors came over here for a better opportunity that we're now living. And then we do our last leg over to the Freedom Tower, which obviously has, no explanation needed, the site of 9/11 and the beautiful building that's there now. And we do the same, and then we run to the 9/11 Memorial, where we put our American flags in the monument. And all of that takes about 3.5 hours. But remember, we're stopping, there's several hundred people in the water. So
it sounds amazing.
We have to take up a footprint. We have to be mindful of the water traffic. We can't have, 2 guys all the way back, the rest of the group all the way up. So we do hold off on launching guys. But the event, 3.5 hours, then we have a nice after party. And over the years, it's just been great. Because some of these guys you don't see. You don't see them all year. And honestly, with the addition of non-military members in the public, there's friendships, business relationships, brotherhoods that have been formed for this event, during this event, of guys who never would have met each other otherwise. Yeah. Never would have had access to, and that goes both ways, right? Some of the SEALs business contacts, some of the business guys, wow, hey, a couple Navy SEAL friends, great, but true friendships and bonds have been formed, and I'm thankful every year that I get to participate.
Yeah, sounds incredible. And I will certainly, if you give me the link, I'll put it in the show notes. Anybody listening that wants to go. When is it again? What's the actual?
So our date is August 19th this year. It's a Saturday with a rain date of August 20th. And I'll say rain, I should say contingency, because it could be raining as hard as it is, we're going to swim. But if it's lightning, we won't.
Yeah. But I say, I've seen Goggins do, I don't know if he's still swimming these days, but I heard he had some health issues recently, but yeah, he's jumping in the water. That guy, he's going.
He's going, man. He's going.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. I'm glad we got to that because I saw it on here and I definitely wanted to ask you and chat with you about it a bit. I'm glad you shared that. I mean, the story is you're doing something with purpose is what it sounds like. And so that's great to hear. So look, we're at the top. I always wrap up, ask a few questions at the end just to kind of get to know you a little bit more. And that was a good start to it. So, but I just want to know, what's the favorite pastime you have that's not related to your business?
Oh, that's an easy one, man. Adventure. Love scuba diving. I used to be a skydiver. I'm actually going to try speed flying in another month. Those guys who run off the mountain with the parachute. No, that's different. These are the guys that they zip down the mountain. You see them a lot of times going through the tree lines.
Yeah.
But scuba diving and traveling, traveling the world, seeing other cultures, seeing how other people live, seeing what things that I can take out of that culture and incorporate, not necessarily in my business life, but in my personal life. And I've been to some great places. I've been to some very dangerous places, and I've met some beautiful people in those poor and dangerous places. And those are the places that honestly affect you the most and really make you come back to the greatest country here and say, okay, this is the greatest country, but I'm missing a few things. Yeah. And I'm missing a few things in my life, and those things aren't material. Sometimes it's just spending extra time with your family. Sometimes it's telling your friends, you appreciate them as friends. When I'm down I was down in Brazil and was staying at somebody's place, my ex-girlfriend at the time, and power went out. I was the only one home. The neighbor was yelling in Portuguese, which I learned, and she wanted the power outlet. But the thing that struck me was she knew exactly where it was in the house. So I came to the conclusion that this is something that has happened before. When I asked my ex, what do I make of this? And she goes, look, man, we may not have what you have, but we help each other. She was like, if my neighbor doesn't have food today, I'm giving my neighbor some food, or they're coming over for dinner. If they need power so they don't lose the food in their refrigerator, then I'm giving them power if I can. Yeah. And to me, that just speaks volumes. I mean, look, tremendous view, tremendous city. And I'd more than put every dollar I got on it that, like me in this building. Do I know people in this building? Yes. Who do I know the most? The staff of this building, the doorman, the security guard, the handyman. Couldn't tell you who my neighbor is. Couldn't tell you who my neighbor is on the other side. Maybe one or two guys I see at the gym down in the basement every once in a while. Don't know what apartment they're in. So it's, when you see that in real life, I was in Egypt, and I saw some similar things, it just hits home, and it makes you a better person because you can appreciate things a lot more. Yeah, I second that. Just traveling in general, but seeing what we have compared to some other countries, and I don't know, that sense of community that you're talking about is huge. Definitely give the kids and the wife a hug, sort of deal. All right. So what is the best thing or memory that's happened to you or your family in the last 60 days or so? Like recent 60 memories. Days? Oh, man. I want recent good things. All right, wait. Let me count. We count 60 days, right? So good Lord. Well, no, listen, if you went 90, 61. I would, no, but so family, again, I'm solo here by myself, so I can't comment too much on immediate family, but for myself, again, recently back from another wonderful trip in Brazil, and just got a chance to see, cultures, experience. I was there for a couple of weeks. I experienced the New Year there, which was great. And again, just seeing how, even coming home from that, it's not easy and it's difficult, but just experiencing the difference of cultures, even when things are not always positive or jokey, so to speak, it's just eye-opening in a sense. Our banks here in the U.S., Saturdays and Sundays. Down in Brazil, no Saturdays, no Sundays. So to see what people don't know, and to see a better way to phrase it for your question is to see what people are amazed by, and bringing down small gifts for some people down there, and their eyes light up. And it's amazing because it's something to us that you would say, well, that's at like every convenience store. Like what's the big deal? And they're saying, well, we don't have it, and it's so that to me was super eye-opening. And I got to say, last 60 days I came to Ripco, so that would
right.
be that would be my personal business. Hey, I'm at Ripco, but
for sure.
But yeah, that's what I would say.
That's a big one. Both of those. I got to ask because we talked Brazil quite a bit. And not a previous life, but in recent history, I've been working with a guy that he's semi-famous, right? He's a figure on television, but he started a fund, and their fund is investing in Brazil heavily. Real estate guy, real estate fund. So is something going on down there that is? And I asked another guy this recently, and then I just see a deal between China and Brazil. And so I'm like, somebody else mentioned, the real is like a currency to watch. So like what's happening? What's going on that I'm missing down in Brazil?
From that aspect, I don't really know. I would love to connect with that gentleman if you felt it appropriate.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'd love to do some investing in Brazil myself. It's a little bit different, but maybe this particular person has a little bit more experience than I would at that. Obviously, Brazil, China, Iran, Kenya, they're coming up with their own currency.
Yep.
Brazil is a very rich country in natural resources, but they keep the money away from the people. They keep the people poor. That's kind of status quo on, socialist style countries. But I don't know what's taking place there like that. But yes, obviously you saw the post. They're creating their own currency. There's obviously something going on. It's a very beautiful and a very dangerous place. I mean, they have a new president, Luta. I was there on election night. I heard the gunshots in celebration. Yeah. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it just keeps popping up. Like it literally is a thing that
keep me posted. I'd like to be involved on that one.
I'll ping you separately and see if we can get a call with my buddy. And yeah, because I'm curious to see what he's working on now these days. Anyway.
Listen, the lifestyle is tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, he loves it. He loves it.
I thought about moving myself. I really did.
Yeah. So we'll talk. Last question. Just a shout out to anybody, like one or two people, I guess, who have been most influential to the way you think or your success. So
the number one on that, unfortunately, is no longer with us. And that was my grandfather. And I can't say he taught me everything I know in a literal sense, but he guided me through many things and made me realize that there are sometimes better ways to go about things than you think. And sometimes that comes with kindness and being kind and understanding to people in their scenarios and situations. You can't be a pushover, but sometimes having an extra ear or looking at things with a different lens can make you invaluable to some people or companies or just a friendship, if that. So he gets the number one shout out. I do have a laundry list of mentors that have influenced me, way too many to really name. So I'll just go old school here and I'll throw mom in there. Mom's been a support system no matter what. She gets the brunt of it. At times she puts up with the hijinks. And as much as I bust her chops, she's one of those advice givers that you won't agree with. And you got to correct her while she's giving her advice and say, you know what? It's not what I just asked you. This is what I asked you. But as the weeks go on, you kind of realize, there was some good information there. But yeah, for me, again, growing up I did have a stepfather, but it was a little bit of a rougher childhood. Not rougher in a physical form, but just mentally. So as much as he is a wonderful person, and he was willing to be a father figure, I didn't accept him back then. So my father figure was my grandfather, and when he passed, and into my young adult life, my father figures, so to speak, were my older friends who were mentors. I got a buddy, Brian, who I'll tell you right now, if there's a situation that I don't know the answer to, my buddy Brian is getting that phone call. And that's from everything from, relationships to business advice to scenario-based things. And obviously, huge shout out to him. I may not agree with everything he says all the time, but I will tell you, he operates old school, and it's handshake deals, and it's caring for the optics of another man. And I don't mean in a relationship way, but as far as business is concerned, as far as other, for example, you may have a situation where, and I remember something like this. He'll tell you, hey, if you're on a group phone call, it might not be the time to exploit another man, whether that be professionally or if it's just a group of friends hanging out. He goes, and that's just an easy example, right? But, it's something that we oftentimes forget. Oftentimes we're so ready to make a point, or we're so ready to be right, or maybe make a better point, that we take those easy opportunities and sometimes cost us big. And he's the first one to tell you, hey, if you made a deal with that guy 10 minutes ago and, you find something right now that you could do better, well, you're 10 minutes too late. You made a deal with that guy. So if you want to approach the guy and say, hey, look, we made this deal, and he says, hey, Randall, look, we just made that 10 minutes ago, it's all good, then that's fine. But you do the right thing. You do the right thing by people, and you do the right thing by those around you. And that's something that that's a lesson that doesn't have a price.
For sure. Yeah, that's good advice. Good to have guys like that around, for sure. So, man, I appreciate the knowledge. Hopefully
it was entertaining.
Man, it's good. Like, for me, I love having these conversations for so many reasons. I never met you before. It's a good time to catch up, and I see what you're working on. And like you said earlier, we can talk business all day, but bringing some of the personal into it as well, and just kind of getting to know people from around the country has been huge for me. So, yeah, I think, I mean, we can talk Brazil, we can talk all kinds of things, and we will business. But yeah. So anyway, man, I appreciate you jumping on. It was good catching up, good getting to know you. I don't know if I have a headshot and bio from you, but if you can send that over, you may get an email from my assistant. She may ping you if we don't have it. Okay. And then this thing will air, I don't know, in a couple of weeks, I would think. And we'll hit you up. But yeah, again, I appreciate you jumping on. I'm going to be up there, I think, in Thanksgiving. I think it's probably around the time. I was hoping that the swim, but man, I can't swim. I can't swim. That's why I'm like.
Listen, man, you give me a heads up when you're coming in, and I'll meet you. We'll grab a drink. I'm all about it. And if your mind changes, come up for a summer weekend and watch the swim take place.
I mean, that'd be cool just to come up and watch it, but I don't think I could.
I'll get you a spot on one of the boats, man, so you can watch it firsthand.
That'd be awesome. All right, man. That sounds good.
Well, listen, man, thank you for having me. Keep me posted on when this is going to come out, and let's chat offline about some of those other things.
For sure. You'll get emailed all the stuff. You'll have artwork and all kinds of other stuff too. So
awesome, man. Thank you so much.
John, take care.
Did you know that 80% of the agents we speak with got into real estate in order to gain passive income so they could obtain financial freedom and become work optional? If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. We'll catch you on the next episode.